Hey, everybody. It's your well woman. It's LaShanna Moore. Welcome to the Living Well with LaShanna podcast. This is all about finding practical, creative, and accessible ways to live, age, and be well and whole. So we are joined together today by our audio podcast. We put my specs on so that I can see you. Hey, everybody. How are you? I hope that you are doing well. You're living well and whole. On this episode, we're going to talk candidly about finding ways to live a balanced life. And we're going to talk about that term balance because we all have a different idea as to what balance looks like, if it's attainable, if it's a word that we should use. But this episode is for the polymath, or at least this term that we call polymath. What is that? It's in essence an individual who has multiple skills, interests, and passions, and you work your life's work revolves around those. So if that's you, welcome to this particular episode. This is going to maximize your life. It's going to maximize your skill set. And I want to just invite you to like, share, and follow. We are being powered by StreamYard on this particular episode. And so let's dive into this conversation. And before we do that, I want to give a shout out to my alma mater, U of H. Our boys, the NCAA basketball team just returned from Final Four, March Madness. We were playing the Florida Gators, and we lost to these guys. But I want to just commend our Cougs on a phenomenal season, Coach Sampson on a phenomenal season. And if you're catching this in real time, you'll know that this is why I'm sharing my congratulations to them. Bittersweet, but very proud of you guys. We haven't made it this far since 1985. So much credit to the coach and to the team. So let's talk about this journey and this lifestyle of living as a polymath. And it's very interesting because based on your generation, based on what generation you come from, you're going to see it differently. I remember hearing growing up that you just needed to find a good job, work, earn your retirement, retire, live off of your retirement, collect your Social Security, live a good life, and let that be that. And what's really interesting is that we have to be mindful of the generations that are speaking. We have to be mindful of how we were raised and how our parents were raised. So you have the silent generation, you have baby boomers, you have Generation X. We were latchkey kids. I'm a Generation Xer. You have the millennials, or also known as Generation Y, and you have Generation C. That's our newest working generation, born between 97 and 2012. And so with each of these generations, there's going to be a different way that we look at how to live, how to thrive, how to get educated, how to work our passions, how to make a living. And I'm one of those people that works within a multiplicity of spaces, but that does not mean that we have to work in chaos. It does not mean that there is no order or no discipline to our lives. And so many of you may be trying to figure it out. Like, what do I do with all of these passions, with all of these desires, with all of these ideas and concepts that come to me? And so I want to tug you by your coattail or by your collar and say, hey, these are some skills that you can apply to your life. If you're feeling pulled in different directions simultaneously, this episode is for you. And I want to talk to you about how do we manage our time? So let's start off by talking about core principles for a polymath's time management. And whether you want to interchange that word with I think it's called multi-potentialite or potentialate, you can do that. We used to say Renaissance. Oh, you're a Renaissance girl. You're a Renaissance guy, huh? You do all these different things. You are an architect, a sculptor. There are some popular polymaths. I think Leonardo da Vinci was one where you have people that just work in many different passions. Some are generalists in it, some excel. They consider themselves as experts and gurus. You can be an artist, a sculptor, a writer, an author, a speaker. That's pretty much how it was. Leonardo da Vinci. He was considered a polymath: painter, sculptor, scientist, architect, engineer, all that stuff. So this conversation is for you. Let's talk about how we look at our time. What do we do with time? Because it's a major part of how we consolidate and manage without being everywhere and all over the place at one time. And so I'm going to share with you some foundational principles that help me, and I think can also be a testament to other polymaths. So the first thing I want you to consider is embracing your seasons of focus. That means rather than trying to do everything at once, rather than trying to advance in all of these areas simultaneously, allow yourself to move through periods where there are certain interests that are going to take precedence. This doesn't mean that you have to abandon the other pursuits, but you're going to recognize that this needs my attention at this moment. And the journey or the challenge with the polymath is understanding that they're not abandoning or being less true to themselves by not bringing everything to the forefront. Because here's the reality: we can't give 100% of ourselves to everything. Remember, outside of being a polymath, ladies and guys, because I know you listen and you watch as well, you're already wearing multiple hats. You've got your domestic hat, you've got your fundamental hats on, you have your professional hat on, you're performing different roles, you've got your fundamental aspects of life that you have to maintain. And so let's go to that word balance real quick as we enter into this season of focused thought. For me, balance has become about learning harmony, how to bring things into synchronicity, how to bring things into a flow and a function with one another. And you can look at all the different areas of your life. You can look at your friendships. You can look at your relationship, your marriage. You can look at various aspects of your community involvement or your extracurricular activities. Think about all these different things that you give yourself to. And each of them are going to challenge your time. Some are going to want more dominant time than others. So while I am giving this information, I want us to be very clear on establishing what fundamental and foundational relationships deserve the majority of your time. I will say what has helped me in my dominant relationship, which is my marriage, which does take a precedence, is being married to someone who understands that partnership is important. We both see partnership as an important cadence of our marriage, which means everything is not necessarily gender role specific. For example, if my husband is traveling, then I have to take the trash out. Or if I need to give more time and focus to something, especially when I'm in school, then he will help me with something in the kitchen or with extra cleanup or helping with the laundry. We're already people who will just complete something if we see that it needs to be done. It's not about, oh, you're a man, you're a woman, or you're the wife, you're the husband. Laundry, dishes, clean up, tidy up, pick up. That works in my home. So that is a flow and a function that really helps me as a polymath to keep the main thing, and to also give appropriate attention and energy to the other things. Now, I want you to think about how your life revolves and the cycle of which you live in and what your foundational and fundamental demands are. But let's go to this idea and this time concept of focusing on one primary thing per season, recognizing that it's going to need your attention. That's the first thing. Now, I like to move in quarters with this. I like to use a quarter system. Many polymaths prefer this as well. This is when you're going to dedicate a 3-month block to going deep in that one area while you still maintain engagement in the other areas. But this is going to create a natural rotation, right? And it's going to prevent any other interest from being neglected long term, because you want to keep your skill set. You want to keep your hand on the pulse of what's going on. You want to make sure that you stay connected. But as a polymath, you understand that this season of life is going to require my primary focus, my dominant focus on this one thing. So the way that I have my business schedule, not schedule, but the way that I have it structured now is LaShanna Moore, a wellness company. Under that umbrella, and you'll see this with other businesses as well. And it took me some time to get there because, like some of the teachings of the former generations, I kept feeling guilty and bothered by really feeling called to multiple areas. And as I have understood it more, develop some disciplines and some skill sets in it, I'm better understanding the rhythm of how I need to organize my life being a polymath. So LaShanna Moore, a wellness company, is the umbrella. Under that, I have my wellness and my health and wellness. I have my wellness real estate. I have arts and cinema. And then there is community. And there's faith. And each one of them have their own respective focus and function. I also understand that I cannot hold all of them equally at the same time. That's like having quintuplets. Mothers find a way to embrace, but mothering also knows that in order to give each baby my best, that I have to attend to them in a rhythm that works best. And so I like this quarter system as a polymath because generally I will take 3 months to focus on this one area, go deep in it, deep dive, while maintaining engagement, or as I said, my hand on the pulse for those other areas. This season for me being this year, this 12 months, I have 2 things that I am giving my primary and dominant focus to. And so when I was saying that you never really lose the pulse or the attention to those other things, these 2 areas that I'm focusing on in 2025 lend to that. So community and film are my 2 dominant areas for 2025. The film, however, is allowing me to bring the pulse of some of those areas into its work. Community as well is allowing me to bring the pulse of other things into that work. And so you'll see that as you are working your schedules out, as you're finding rhythms. But make sure that you understand, and make sure that this is on. Make sure that you understand that they're going to thread and merge. They're not going to fight and beat each other. That's how you know something may need to be pulled out. You maximize time without having to add more time to it to occupy what you are forcing into that place. And I want to be specific in saying that because I think polymaths, you'll understand, you tend to think that I've got to do all the things. There's going to be an opportunity to have natural combinations. That's my number 3. I'm a bullet point girl. So that's my number 3 is looking for natural combinations. You're going to find interests overlapping, like my 2 projects for this year. For example, if you're a writer, but you also like history and you like philosophy, then maybe you're going to engage in creating this big write-up that's going to include all of those areas: history, philosophy, observation. You're going to be able to integrate all of those things. That's going to multiply your impact without multiplying the time that you invest. And that is what living well as a polymath is all about, is finding harmony, synchronicity, function and flow in my life. And the better able we do that, then the other areas of our lives are going to be recipients of that rhythm, of that flow, of that synchronicity. It's going to spill over into other areas of our lives. I will be a more optimized wife, friend, leader, sister, daughter, mentor, and all of these other areas, if my time is well managed and I don't try to force another domain into this season of my life. To prevent guilt, polymath guilt is what they technically call it. Always remember that everything is going to cycle the way that it needs to. But you have to be honest and true about sensing and discerning what, I'm looking down at my stomach, because that's kind of the seat of your emotions, where you feel, you think, you reason. Our emotions and our will, and that struggle is always there. There's always going to be an opportunity for things to cycle around, and you want to honor that by making sure that you say to yourself, okay, I recognize this season is going to require this, and these other things are going to come back around in their respective season. And you want that because you're going to work more efficiently that way. Something else I like to share with audiences and with friends or whoever I'm engaged in a conversation with regarding this topic is, for every new addition to your life. I was just talking with the ladies in Abiding Bible Study about this, our last meeting, that with everything, with every new thing that comes in our lives, we need a new system for that. So blessings often disguised as responsibility. We think that blessings are free, a free for all. We think they're a free fall. We think that they are just good things that just kind of sit and magically manage themselves, and they don't. Blessings require responsibility. So it's not always about being in a season of restriction, of less, of little, of constraint. It's also managing your surplus, your abundance, your more, your answered prayers, your desires. All of these things require management. And the best way to flow and to have harmony is to integrate a system. Here's an example. You're a new mom. Okay, how does time look now? What systems do you need to integrate in life for motherhood? You've gotten a promotion, or you just launched a business. What systems need to be integrated in your life now to manage that blessing, aka responsibility? So remember, keep yourself from going crazy. For every new addition, make sure that there is a corresponding system. You want flow, function, synchronicity, and harmony. All right, let's move on. So number one, you're embracing a season of focus as they come. Number two, I want you to identify your, what I call, minimum viable progress. Huh? What is that? What is the least amount of engagement that you need to prevent skill decay or loss of context? So let's say you're focusing on something, but you've got these other domains that do require a skill set. You want to make sure that you don't lose them. So what minimum time, least amount of engagement can you give to them so that you don't lose that skill set? So there's no decay of skill or loss of context. If you're learning a language, foreign language, or if you need to practice a language, if you need to practice an instrument, if you need to practice different exercises, perhaps 30 minutes a day or X amount of minutes a week. That is an integration for the polymath. I want to move forward. Natural combinations, that's number 3. I've already talked about it a little bit. Where do your interests overlap? We tend to think that we have to do everything individually, that every skill, every passion, every domain, I'm calling it domain, requires its own niche, its own domination of time. And that's not always necessary. I want you to think about how they can overlap. I gave you the example of someone who's a writer who loves history and philosophy, and how they're going to mesh all of that together. Well, another thing that you need to consider doing is removing these false choices. Some of this narrative we create is just taking up precious space in our brain, in our activity, in our energy, and in our world. Remove false choices. Everything is not either or. Some of this is both and. Can I exercise while listening to a lecture, an audiobook, or a podcast? Can I do two things and they coexist in harmony? Remember, your gauge is always going to be things harmonizing themselves, flowing like an orchestra, synchronicity, flow, function, ease in that the time doesn't battle against what another domain's time requirement would be. If they don't flow, then they don't go. Simple as that. Remove false choices. Remove this false idea that everything has to flow together and my time has to be extended in order for that to happen. You don't have to force flow. I want to give you 4 time blocks, and I want to call them a time block portfolio. Why do I call them portfolio? Because we look at portfolios as a seriously crafted arrangement. These are my investments in this portfolio. They're going to yield something. In some seasons, I'm going to have a high yield here, and I'm going to have high maintenance required here, and they're going to require my professional focus here, but they are going to yield a return. These others may have modest focus and requirement. They're going to yield a modest return. You understand what I'm saying? So on and so forth. Because you've got to realize also that you are expending yourself. You are a resource, okay? You are the it girl. You are the it woman if men are watching. But you're a limited resource. I heard Bishop Jake say that many years ago. You're a resource, but you're a limited resource. There's only so much of you to go around at a time. And if I'm talking about living, aging, and being well and whole, then that means I need to take into consideration how I am expending myself. You really have to do an internal deep dive with that and make sure that you're not getting lost. Here's a side note, because I like to go down rabbit trails. You've got to make sure that the essence of you are not getting lost in what you do. That if you were not a polymath, if you were not doing all of these things, you would still be okay with the essence of you. So that is the internal work that has to be done, that you're not being ambitious or an achiever or overachiever because you're using these things to identify who you are. These are gifts that God has given. These are skill sets that require time and focus and build, right? Yes. So let's look at time block portfolio. I'm going to give you 4. Deep focus, maintenance, exploration, and integration. These are blocks that I have learned how to integrate because I once upon a time thought that I had to do it all at once and got very frustrated when, like Lego blocks or like a puzzle, it just was not fitting. And I was up at midnight, 2, 3 a.m. trying to make it work. And I also feeling this sense of duty, this sense of responsibility to my audiences or to the people that my domains call me to. Deep focus is going to be your biggest block in each season. Those are the blocks that are going to require hours. These are going to be your deep dives. This is your primary domain, okay? This is where you're going to focus on this concentrated effort and protect it fiercely, which means you're not going to let anything knock you out of that square. I have to do this when school is in session, when I'm in school. It is a priority for me. Number one, as an older adult in school, I don't want to extend my time of being in school, prolonging graduation. I want to get this thing done. That's how I feel about it. If I am focusing on a project, this year I'm doing a film, I'm spending deep focus blocks on that. So you'll have to identify what your deep focus blocks are. These are the hour blocks. The second one is your maintenance blocks. These are your minutes, 30 or 60 minutes or so. these are where you're going to, these are your areas where that require, maintenance and engagement so that you can prevent that skill decay that I was talking about earlier. Language learning, music learning, instrument learning, physical training, exercise, things that are going to keep you sharp. Even neuroplasticity, activities for that. What am I going to do that fall under my maintenance block? 30, 60-minute blocks, X amount of times a week. Got it? Next, let's move to exploration blocks. All right. Now, these are going to vary. These are times that you're going to reserve for discovering new connections and areas of interest. And yes, you need it. For the person who is, what do you call a creature of habit? Yes, you need to explore. You need to continue to build connection. We need to continue adding interest to our lives. Remember, y'all, we're students of life. We never reach this place or this pinnacle where we know it all. We've done it all, even as much as you may have done. And it is important for us to continue to explore. As we get older, it's important that we leave space open to meet new people and to garner new friendships. And I know some of you may feel a way about it. Work on your internal story, your backstory, so that you can welcome this idea of new connections in your life. This is going to prevent the polymath from feeling constrained, feeling restricted, or feeling like you are on autopilot. Okay. The last block that I want to share is going to be called the integration block. And I'm looking at my time here. I want to try to keep this under 30 minutes if I can, 30 minutes or less if I can. I may go over just a few minutes. But integration blocks. So these are going to be like maybe 1 to 2 hours a week. This is when you're going to sit down and ask yourself, okay, what skills can I pull out of what I'm currently working on? Like, case in point for me. When I entered into the world of dance, I started noticing that it was helping me with my communication skills. It was helping me with problem solving. It was helping me with eye contact. It was helping me with life skills. I grew up very shy, very insecure, very reticent. So my mother put me in dance. As I continued in dance and I started to develop during my formative years, I started noticing how it was helping me in other areas. Some of you may see that happening in your main domain, that you're maybe increasing in math or in reasoning or in problem solving or critical thinking. I want you to think about integration block. And I do like to block a time for this because for me, in living well, that means that I'm not skipping lessons, that I'm not bypassing jewels, that I'm paying attention to green flags and red flags, that I am not restricting my growth by just going through stuff, getting stuff done, deep diving, reading and executing, being ambitious and going through it. I love integration blocks because it gives me that time to really think about how this domain is applying other skills and nuggets to my life. Last thing I want to talk about in this episode, and we can go ahead and do a part 2, is to create a morning hour strategy. Now, all of us have a different working style, and all of you have a different work schedule. So if you work overnight, then you may have to turn this inside out. You may have to juxtapose it. But I like to consider a morning hour strategy. This is a practice that's going to develop my flow for the day and for the week. And I have noticed this with other multi-skilled people. They read certain kind of books on certain days. They do certain kind of work on certain days. They have everything that is necessary to their output, organized and prepared. I'll consolidate it just like that. Use a morning hour to do that. Think about it. Use a morning hour to do that. All right. Let's stop there. Let's do a part 2. It's your well woman, LaShanna Moore. encouraging you to live, age, and be well and whole. Polymaths, replay this and share this with somebody who you know needs to hear it. And I'll see you on the next episode.